I talk a lot about technique on stage of how to perform, but also about the mindset that you need to be able to go into performance confidently, but also so you can connect with your audience. We need to look after our audiences. We need to treat our audiences like we treat our friends. We need to welcome them into our stage home as we treat people when they come into our own home. If we can behave in certain ways on stage, they will just reflect that back to us. And that is when you start really connecting with your audience. I just really want to encourage people to do what they want to do to be able to express themselves.
My guest today is performance psychology coach Lucie Burns. Lucie works with professional performers and creatives to develop stage confidence, authentic self-expression, and audience connection. Her Stage Ready Artist program offers performance coaching, tour preparation, master classes, and group coaching. Also known as the artist, songwriter, and music producer Lazy Hammock, Lucie has achieved 4 number ones, released 11 albums, and amassed over 25 million streams. Her music has been licensed to TV shows and major labels, with tracks featured on over 3,000 compilation albums. Lucie also hosts the Singing Buddha podcast, exploring creativity, mindset, and personal growth, and Soul Call Sanctuary, a community supporting women in reconnecting with the creativity and purpose. Her most recent book is called The Art of Live Performance Unlocked, which helps artists overcome self-doubt, stage fright, performance anxiety, comparison to others, and perfectionism. During the interview, we talked about the best way to engage with an audience, overcoming performance anxiety, building trust with artists, the birth of Lazy Hammock, and much more. I spoke with Lucie from her office in London.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're doing performance coaching. Does that mean helping a performer's confidence or the technique?
It's both, actually. I work very holistically. So I work with mindset, and I really help try and nurture the performer creatively. I talk a lot about technique on stage of how to perform, but also about the mindset that you need to be able to go into performance confidently, but also so you can connect with your audience. Because so many people, they go on stage, but they haven't a clue once they're on stage what to do, because they might have had singing lessons, they might have had music lessons, and they feel all ready. And then they get on stage and they're like, okay, because what they haven't realized is performance is a skill. And it's a separate skill. And it's a skill like learning the guitar or learning the drums or singing. And people don't often realize that. And it's only through all my years of teaching and coaching, and also being a performer myself, especially it was from the performer side for me, that I realized this just isn't covered. I know it is more now, but it wasn't, and people were really struggling. And I find that artists struggle a lot with the same problems.
One of the things that the era I come from that was really helpful is that when we started, we all played clubs a lot. And you kind of graduated from local to regional to state to whatever. And as you did it more, you got better at it. And that's not the case with artists anymore, because they don't really have that experience, that breadth of experience. You find that?
Absolutely.
At least that's the way it is
absolutely.
here.
And especially more so, I think, since lockdown, because people got used to performing from their homes on the screen. And I think also anxiety has increased just across the board, not just performance anxiety, but just anxiety in general. And so what's happening is people aren't taking those steps that they were before of going, I feel anxious, but I'm going to do it anyway. A lot now it's, I feel anxious, I can't do it. And this is where it's really important to bridge the gap. And that's what I try and do with artists, is bridge that gap between not wanting to go or wanting to go and not feeling able to go. So being able to encourage an artist by building their confidence up. Because often the thing that they're focusing on isn't necessarily their craft. It's actually what other people think of them. It's the judgments they feel that they're going to get from other people, or it's their own self-judgment. And this causes a lot of problems for them, a lot of anxiety, a lot of self-doubt. And then we've got perfectionism and comparison to others, all of these things that actually all human beings go through, but it's getting worse and worse and worse over the I mean, I've been teaching sort of music in general for the last 25 years. So I've been performance coaching for a lot of that time. But I have definitely seen in the last 7 years a massive shift for artists and how they're feeling and their own self-confidence.
Are we talking mostly solo artists or bands? Because I would think bands would be different because you have to perform more in order to get tight. With a solo artist, all you have to do is come up with some good songs that go viral, and there you go.
Well, I find actually it's both, but it's different because obviously you and I know if you're in a band, it's you've got your bandmates, and so it's a lot easier. Things are a lot easier because you've got other people on stage with you. But I've coached bands and I've coached lots of solo artists. Now, the thing is with bands is that, yes, in the sense of feeling a little bit more confident on stage because you've got the people that you know with you and all of that, that's fine. But what I find with a lot of bands is especially often, well, the lead singer often finds it very difficult to engage with their audience. And the other thing that some of the band members find difficulty with is actually engaging with each other at the right times. So, okay, in the breaks and everything, they're great at engaging with each other. But when they need to be looking at each other because the song's going to go to in a different direction or do something like that, sometimes they're in their own world. It's like separate people on a stage rather than a group of people actually flowing effortlessly together because the individual's mindset has changed from when they were off the stage to when they were on the stage. Often off the stage, very confident in rehearsals. They're feeling the music. And what happens when a lot of artists get on stage, they start thinking the music. Now, this needs to swap round. Really what needs to happen is the artists need to think more when they're in rehearsals because they need to be thinking about, okay, what do we need to do now? What's the next set? What we can, all of that sort of organising thing. But what they do is they get so carried away with the feeling, this is great, I'm loving it, yeah, let's do this again, and really enjoying it, which is really good. But they let themselves go in a way that is appropriate for stage. And then what happens, they get on stage and they start thinking, am I going to forget my solo? Am I going to forget my lines? What's going to happen now? Are people looking at me? What are people thinking about me? And they're thinking all of these things. And suddenly this, it's going, you can see it going around in their minds that they're not 100% focused on the job that they're doing or the audience. Because often I talk a lot about changing focus, flipping the focus from yourself to the audience. Because what usually happens is performers often think all about themselves before they go on stage. So it's, as I was saying earlier, am I going to forget my lines? I'm feeling nervous. I don't know if I can get through this set. And all these different things. And not once are they thinking about, am I going to give the audience a good show? Am I going to create a great energy in the room? What is the connection I'm going to have with the audience? All the things that we need to think about before we go on stage, but actually we're thinking about ourselves. So what happens is the ego takes over. And when the ego takes over, you start to perform from a different place. What you need to do is really perform from the heart, perform from the love of your music. Because often an artist's performance actually lacks enjoyment because they're so worried about the performance that they're not enjoying it anymore. What they used to enjoy has gone. Now, of course, this isn't all artists and all bands, but this does happen a lot. And sometimes a lot of this is just going on in people's minds and people's heads. People wouldn't necessarily know it, but they know it. And this is what's important. They know it. And if they feel it and they know it and they're putting a gig out like that, imagine what the gig would be like if they weren't going through these things in their mind, if they were feeling better about being on stage, if they did know how to connect with an audience, if they did enjoy connecting with an audience. It would be a totally different show or a better show.
One of the things that I realized, I think it was after I stopped playing in bands and started as a producer, and acts that I was producing, I would go to the rehearsals, and I realized that they'd spend all their time on music and no time thinking about the stage show.
Yes. Yeah.
So there was no confidence. It wasn't choreographed to the degree that you see like a big concert act. And I think when you have that certainty of what you're going to do when during the show, that could alleviate a lot of that problem as well, because you're confident in, okay, I go from here to here, this is what I say, and when I say. Do you find that as well?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you one of the things that artists don't practice. What are they going to say between songs? Now, if you think about it, an artist or a band will practice their set hundreds of times, maybe even thousands of times before they go on stage. And then I ask them, I say to them, and I've written about this in my book, and I say, have you actually practiced what you're doing in between the songs? Oh, no, I don't like that part. And I make a point of saying, don't just practice the things that you enjoy doing, because what happens then is the things you enjoy doing, they get better like this, and the other things stay here. And so there's this big gap. And what we need to do is close that gap. And so if you think about it, if there are, say, 10 songs in a set, for example, you've got 10 times that you're unprepared for. 10 times. I mean, obviously, you're not going to speak between every song. If you've got 10 songs, you're probably not going to speak. You'll probably speak in between about 6, maybe. But 6 times you're unprepared. Now, I don't think necessarily that you need to have a script. I really don't, because I don't think that's natural. But what I do think is that artists need to really think about what is the essence of who they are that they want to give to the audience? What is it about them that they want the audience to know? You don't want to tell the audience everything. Some people like telling their personal story to the audience. Some people don't. But what is it? Are you going to trip your way through each song at the end of it? Or are you going to actually realize that from one song to another is a transition? It's like when you're editing a video and you have a transition, it must be smooth. And very often people are not smooth in that part because they don't know what to say. So they're either picking up a drink or just saying thank you and then getting on with the next one at the end of that song. Thank you. This song's called so-and-so. Thank you. And it's like, come on, we need something else. We need a bit of you. We need a bit of your personality. And it doesn't matter if you're confident. It doesn't matter if you feel a little bit vulnerable or a little bit shy, because all of those traits in people can be used for your performance. Not everyone's the same. Not everyone has to jump up and down and sing really loud, up-tempo music. You might be a down-tempo artist who sings very chilled music, but you just want to connect with your audience in a very authentic way. But you haven't done anything, you haven't thought about it once before you've stepped on that stage. And that's often the thing that you find the hardest, harder than your performance. And we're unprepared.
It happens to every artist. When does an artist generally understand that's something that they have to concentrate on? At what point in their career do you find?
To be honest with you, I've met a lot of artists that have never really thought about it. They say to me, when I ask them, okay, what are the areas that you find difficult? And they might say, moving on stage, speaking in between songs, engaging with my audience, for example. And so I say, have you done work on speaking between songs? No, I just don't like doing it. Wow, okay, so here's the issue. So quite often a person will be quite far into their career and it's still a stumbling block. And I know this because I had this. This was something that I went through, and that's the thing. Everything that I talk about in my book, I've either been through or I've coached artists going through these things. And I've had to learn the steps. I've had to find the steps, which is why I hope that it's kind of more of a fast track route for them, because I've done a lot of the work that needs doing so they can actually find the techniques to do these things.
I'm glad you went there, because that opens up an interesting point. When did you get that revelation yourself? When did it happen where you went, oh, I think I have to get better at this? Was there a moment?
I always knew that I found it difficult right from the beginning. And this is something that if I do a gig, I'm still going to work on that. because I always don't ever be too confident that it's like, oh, I know that now, because you can guarantee that's the night you'll go on stage and you'll trip up. So as the years went on with my performing, I was getting better at it. But I reckon it was probably maybe even as late as 10 years ago. And I've been performing for about 30 years. But what actually hit me was that I was able to speak to people in between songs by that point. But what I wasn't able to do is feel natural and be natural about it. It was more, here's the part where I have to speak to people. And what I found was when I changed the way that I performed, which was in more of an authentic way and in more of a way where I just really just connected with the people in the room. So it wasn't them and me, it was us. In the room, it was us creating that energy. It wasn't because I'm on stage and you're looking at me. It was I'm on stage because this is my job tonight. You might have been at your job today. So I'm performing for you tonight. But we're just all people who do different things. And this is what I'm doing tonight. And you're there tonight. And we're just going to create this great energy in the room together. And what I love about that is that every gig you do, you will never, ever have the same energy. So that group of people, you and that group of people, create an incredible energy together that can never be the same because you will never have that exact group of people again. And this is a real opportunity to really merge with your audience. And when I say, as late as 10 years ago, it was just such, in a way, a profound shift for me. So I'd been teaching all of this, but I really noticed the difference when I in myself changed, I think, was changing as a person. Because, we always change as people, we evolve. And I was evolving as a person. And I was, I suppose, that thing of, you might say, coming back to me. It's like all these years we can kind of try and be an artist or try and be this, try and be that, or try and be like someone else. And then at some point, hopefully, you go, I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm enough. And I could come back to me and realize that I was enough. And how I was with my audience was enough because they were coming to see me. And I was able to be me, but I was able to connect with them and they were bringing their authentic selves as well.
That raises a question. Yes, it's one thing if people are coming specifically to see you as an artist, but what if it's a cold audience? What if they don't know you? It's hard to win them over.
Absolutely. I've got this bit in my book about hot and cold audiences. The thing is, with a cold audience, for example, if you're in a bar, you're playing a gig, you don't know the audience, they don't know you, they've just, they might have just come in. Some of them might not even want to listen to music. You're just there. But your job is to still do the same thing, is to be as good as you can be, is to give as much as you can. It doesn't matter if there's one person there, 10 people there, 100 people there. It doesn't matter if they're expecting you or not expecting you. Because the thing is you can still attract fans or people who like your music. Now, it's not only just like your music. Sometimes people might not like your music, and that's fine. You don't like everyone's music. No one likes everyone's music. But what you might do is because of the way you perform, people might stop and go, do you know what? I really like that. I really like what she's doing, or I really like what he's doing. And this is the thing. It's like you've got a job to do. And just because your audience changes doesn't mean you should change. Now, I know what happens is many artists think that their audience is there to look after them. I'm going to come on stage, I don't feel that they're very welcoming to me, so we put up a barrier. I don't feel they're being that friendly, so we put up another barrier. And then, we expect them to tiptoe around us. No. We need to look after our audiences. We need to treat our audiences like we treat our friends. We need to welcome them into our stage home as we treat people when they come into our own home. And so it's really important that we focus on our number one focus should be audience. What are we doing for the audience? What are we giving to the audience? Not what am I getting? What are they doing? No, what am I doing? Because what I found out over all these years is that our audiences mirror us. Our audiences are a mirror. So if you think about when you go to a gig and you watch someone who's a little bit nervous, what happens is that we feel uncomfortable for them because they feel uncomfortable. And it's not that we're, thinking bad things about them, but we feel a little uncomfortable because they're very uncomfortable on stage. If they're not looking at us and connecting with us, we can't really connect with them. Now, if someone on stage comes on, really connects with you, looks at you in the eye, smiles, and starts their set or whatever, immediately you're thinking, something within you feels safe, feels like you're being looked after. They know what they're doing. They're professional. Great. And you can just let go. And you can let go because the performers let go. The problem is if the performer's not letting go, your audience won't let go. And so we have an incredible power that we can use with our audience, for our audience. And they really are a mirror to us. If we can behave in certain ways on stage, they will just reflect that back to us. And that is when you start really connecting with your audience.
That's good advice, definitely. You have a great website, stagereadyartists.com. I like it a lot. It's very well laid out, and what's especially laid out is the services that you offer. And a couple things jumped out at me, tour preparation and tour accompaniment. So let's go there for a second. What does tour preparation entail?
So tour preparation is really, a lot of it is the mindset, because if someone's going on tour, their mindset, they have a lot of things to think about. It's like endurance, really. It's not just, I'm going to do a gig tonight. It's I'm going to do lots of gigs. How am I going to stay at my best, at my peak for all of those gigs? How am I going to perform the best? What if I have an off day? What happens then? So it's really, really working with them in more of a coaching style, that is. So I can do it. Depends on the artist. It depends what they need, but we can do actual technical, performance, how they actually perform. But most of it is mental preparation to get them ready to go on the tour.
And tour accompaniment, I assume that means that you're going out with them, right?
Tour accompaniment is being there, and you basically are on call. And you're on call for artists who just really need that sort of confidence booster. But not only that, but actually for you to be able to look at the show, be able to constructively critique it with them, and see what we can do better next time, or what is it that you need to work on, or what did you do really well? And if we do these little tweaks, we can get you here or there. And it's also, I've done a lot of work in personal development as well. So I really combine those two things. I combine the coaching with a lot of sort of personal development work of really working one-on-one on a deep level with an artist, because I like to build up that trust. I find that artists tend to trust me quite quickly, but that is, I suppose, just because of the experience that I have, or maybe the way that I work with them. Because once that trust is built, you can't make anyone trust you. It's only there if they trust you. But once that trust is built, and they can open up actually about things that maybe have had a knock-on effect about things. So, for example, if we talk about self-doubt, people don't just suddenly appear with self-doubt because they're going on stage. This self-doubt has kicked in probably when they might have been 5, 6, 7, or 8. It could have been someone just saying, "Oh, shut up, you don't sing well. Just stop, you sound like a screeching cat." Now that, for someone who loves singing, or for them it was everything to them, they could just stop singing for years. Or it could be something that people have said just about you as a person, or it doesn't have to be about music. But what happens is we get we basically get a baton. I liken it to a relay race. If you think about a relay race, when we pass on the baton, when we're younger, or lots of people pass us a baton that basically says, you're not good enough in some way, whatever it is, whether it's true or it's not true. The thing is, that doesn't matter, because when we say it to ourselves enough times, we believe it's the truth. This is the problem. And it becomes embedded in our subconscious. So they hand us this baton saying, this is you. This is what I think of you. And what we do is we take the baton from them. And so what happens is, when we get older, those people aren't saying anything to us anymore, but we're saying the same things because we're holding that baton and we're metaphorically hitting ourselves over the head with the baton. Now, what we have to do is learn to drop that baton and to pick up another baton, a baton of confidence, a baton of self-belief, a baton of self-worth. That when we hand that to our audience, that's who they see and that's who they believe. Because the thing is, we're going out there on stage, handing them this baton of self-doubt, saying, I don't feel worthy to be up here. I don't feel good about myself. And I'm handing this to you. Now you take this and you can go home and then you can tell all your friends that I wasn't that great. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because we don't feel good enough. People then don't think we're good enough. And then we say, see, I knew no one liked me.
Yeah. It's funny you should mention this. I was having the same conversation with someone yesterday. She teaches people art, but it's not traditional art. It's like, okay, this is what you do and let's make it better. And let's see if actually we can make this commercially viable. And she said the major problem for most of the people that come to her is the fact that when they were young, they had an art teacher that told them they were no good because they were not doing it the traditional way. That, for fine art, for instance, they were going off their own way and they were told, okay, you're no good. And that stayed with them all their life. So yes, what you're saying is absolutely true across the board, the creative board, I think.
I think we can all look back and remember a time when someone has said something to us. I certainly can. I've had times, when I was little, when someone might have said something, but I've also had things said to me, when I was older, it could be like, in the music industry, sometimes it's really difficult to make money at times, or it's really hard to, work on the side and do this. And people say, aren't you getting a proper job yet? When you're going to get, things like that. And they really hurt, because what we're doing is we're expressing our essence, as I said earlier. It's our creativity, it's our truth, it's a part of us. And every time someone knocks us, it makes us believe, or we start to believe, that we're just not good enough. We're just not quite enough. And then when we step on that stage, all of that has a massive impact, because we step on with all the baggage, all the freight that we've carried throughout our lives. And so what I try and do with artists is try and imagine that they've got this rucksack on with loads of bricks in. And I try and get them to take out the bricks one by one, and they could be different things that they've experienced or obstacles or whatever. And I say, fill it with feathers, fill it with the things that are going to make you fly, not the things that are going to hold you down. And so then we try and put in the things that actually, these are going to help you. Saying this to yourself will help you.
Yeah. Let's talk about your background a little bit, because you were Lazy Hammock as an artist,
yes.
right? Yeah,
I am.
You are, right. So what's your background there?
So Lazy Hammock came about 2008. I mean, I'd written all my life. I'd started writing songs when I was 12 anyway, and I'd written all the way through, and I'd had my own band, and I'd done loads of different things. I was a jungle MC as well, drum and bass MC back in the 90s as well. Did lots and lots of different things. And what happened was Lazy Hammock came about when I was having a really rough time in my life. I was teaching, but I was in between jobs, and I was bringing up my son on my own, and I was just on a low point. And I'd had this really great gig with my band. I'd written all the songs, and they were a great band, and we'd done this great gig. And we'd filled out the venue. It was a small venue, but we'd filled it, and everyone was, it was quite a soulful, funky band. And we filled out the venue, and there was this deal we had with the owner, and it was like it was crap money she was offering us. You get like 50 quid or something for all of you, for a gig. But what I'll do is we'll share the drinks profit if, you bring people. So we packed out the venue. And people were drinking. And we got to the end and I went to collect the money. And she said, there's your 50 quid. And I said, no, no. You said we could have part of the bar. And she said, well, then they're not your people. And I said, they're all my family and friends, that I know them all. She said, no, you don't. And she said, well, how do we know that? And she said, well, this is all you're getting. And I was so upset because it was another gig of going home with less than you'd gone out with in your pocket because you'd already bought food and petrol and, the whole lot. And so I went home and after that, I was really low because I was like, you know what? I can't keep doing this. I just can't keep doing this. I'm going to give it up, because we're so dramatic as musicians. And, so I'm going to give it up. Anyway, I was going through a time when I was doing a lot of meditation around that time and a lot of deep sort of processing, deep thought and a lot of work on myself. And one day I was in the middle of a meditation and these two words came to me, lazy hammock. And I thought, what is that? Like, what is that? But what I had learned is that if you get something kind of in a way downloaded to you, don't just ignore it. Just look into it because it might be something. Because it definitely was something that came in and it was like, what is that? So I said, is that the name of an album? Is that the name of a song? Is that the name of what is it? And I sat and I thought and I just thought, that's my new artist name. Because I'd had quite some success with a track I did with another producer years before, and it was chill out music. It was the Ibiza chill out music, and I thought, you know what, maybe I'll focus on that type of music, Lazy Hammock, chill out, electronica, whatever, because I could write all types of music, and then I just got to just writing, and I had this. I said to myself, right, I'm going to get on one compilation by the end of the year. That was my goal. I'm going to get on one compilation. Every day I said it, I'm going to get on a compilation, get on compilation. Anyway, by the end of the year, I'd written an album and I found someone to master it and mix it for me. And it was different to what I'd written before. And I'd never really produced my own music before, but I taught myself. I just thought, I'm just going to get on with it and just do it. I can't find a producer, so I'm just going to do it. So I did it. And then I did album after album. I set myself a goal and I said, right, every year I'm going to either release an album or an EP. So I ended up releasing 11 albums. I think I've released about 5 EPs maybe and 7, 8 singles, whatever. Just released. And I worked myself to the bone, basically. And so then, that's how Lazy Hammock came about. And so so the music's on Spotify and wherever.
So your coaching then, when did that come about in relation to your career?
So it all runs parallel. I basically went to music college in my early 20s and they said to me, we really think you'd make a good teacher. We want you to teach here. And I was like, no way, don't want to be a teacher. I want to be a musician. Don't want to be a teacher. No, Lucy. And they wouldn't let it go. And they said, no, we really, really want you to be a teacher here. And I said, eventually I thought, okay, I'll do it because I had a son anyway. And I thought, well, it's brilliant because it goes with his school holidays and everything. So it just matches up. So I did it. It was in a community music college and it was great, actually. I freelanced for them for about 10 years. I became the head of performance. And then I started up my own business. So I did still work in colleges and universities, did loads of freelance work. But at the same time, I was coaching from home. I had my own private business as well. And I also taught vocals for 7 years as well. And vocals wasn't the direction I really wanted to go in at first, but it was what I needed to do right then. And I was doing performance coaching at the same time. But then I said, I'm just going to go all in on the performance coaching because this is where my heart is. This is what I love doing, and this is what I'm good at because I can see how people are after they've been to me. So, and the testimonials I've had. So I thought, this is what I want to carry on with.
That all leads to your book, The Art of Live Performance Unlocked, a Definitive Industry Guide. I love the title.
Thank
It's great.
you.
When did you decide that I'm going to compile everything I know into a book?
Oh, so that was quite a while ago. And the thing is, I have written another book as well, which is more personal development book, 15 Steps to Lasting Happiness. And it was a short book. So I'd written a short book, had experience in writing a book. And I thought, I've always liked writing. I've always liked English. But I just thought I don't really want to write a proper book because I know that's a lot of work. I've written albums, but I don't know about writing a book. But anyway, about 12 years ago, I said to myself, I've got so many things written down because I used to teach a lot of masterclasses to students. And I've got all of these techniques and all of these different exercises that, I've developed myself, and so many different things. And also, as I said earlier, people come to me with the same difficulties, self-doubt, they come to me with, perfectionism, all the different things. And I thought, I need to collate all of this and I need to put it in one place in a book. So if people want it, it will have like literally everything. It's got over 100 topics in it because it comes from the point of view of me being a coach, but also a performer. Me who's been on stage, been that performer in my 20s that looked at the band while I sang because it was easier because I didn't want to face the audience. I've been there. I know what it's like. I know what it feels like to being able to be a performer who gets on stage and enjoys every minute of it. And seeing so many artists struggle, really, really struggle. It's like they've got an internal pain that they can't get rid of, that this angst about performing, it's like this thing that they love, their music, but the performance side of it and putting the two together, they just can't seem to gel them together. And so that's what I did. So it's got so many different topics in it, so many different things in it. I've tried to cover most things that I think performers will either want to know or if they want to get better and excel in their craft. Because this isn't just for performers who are finding things difficult. This is for people who really want to take their craft to the next level as well.
Lucie, what don't people know about you that you wish they did?
Oh, that's a question. I think maybe if it was to do with my music, that I basically do everything from singing, songwriting, producing, mixing, all of it. Every part of it I do. And sometimes I do collaborate with people. Not that often, but I do collaborate with people. But it's that, I suppose, and DJing as well, just kind of every part of that. Because I think, especially for women sometimes, it's very difficult because being a producer, I don't think it's so hard now as it was, but being a producer or a women who want to go into producing, it's like, oh gosh, some women are very, very technical as some men are. And some women aren't, like I wasn't. I'm not a technical person at all. Like people always say to me, you're so technical, you write albums, you do all this, do all that. And I'm thinking, do you know the work I put into these things? No, but that's fine. But actually, I just really want to encourage people to do what they want to do to be able to express themselves. For me, all I needed was play, record a different sound. Let me look for a sound. Yeah, like that sound. Right, now I can play the piano, just, right. So I think don't get too hung up on it all. Just do it.
Well, that leads me to my last question, Lucie, which you just alluded to. You may have answered it already. What's the best piece of advice that maybe you learned along the way or maybe somebody imparted to you?
I think to be kind to yourself, especially when critiquing your music. And the reason I say this is because many artists, if they're doing something, they'll say, oh no, that's rubbish. They might even write a song. The amount of artists I know who are songwriters who just screw up the paper and just throw it away. That's rubbish. And what they do is they don't realize that becoming an artist is a process like building a house. And you lay the foundations. And I don't really know how you build a house, but I guess you lay the foundations and then you do the next bit and the next bit. But at some point you put in the windows and you put in the doors and you put in all those things and you put on the roof. And what I find a lot of artists, they start laying the foundations and then they just stamp in the foundations and walk off and they keep starting to build new houses because they put themselves down. And so for me, it's really important that people feel okay about themselves, feel good. They treat themselves like they treat their best friend. And I say that because if you're treating yourself any less than you would treat your friend, you're doing yourself a disservice, because why should you treat yourself any worse than you treat another person? You shouldn't, because it has the same impact on you as it would on them. But you think that's okay, but it's not. If you stop someone else from saying those things to you years ago, you shouldn't keep repeating them to yourself. So really be kind. Be kind with your critique, because if you constructively critique well, what happens is you go, okay, what did I do? What did I do? What could I do better? Okay, I need to go and do that. Get in the studio and work on it. All right, now then you've moved forward and you've grown. If you say, oh, that gig was crap, oh, I played so badly, I'm really bad, oh, I'm never doing that again, I'm so rubbish, we can't go anywhere with that except down. You don't move, you don't grow, so you've got to, in a way, take some responsibility and say, okay, if I want to get better, I've got to stop stomping off every time I do something wrong and actually look at what could I do better next time. And that's how we grow. We don't grow from being good all the time. We grow from making mistakes.
Boy, this was just wonderful, Lucie. You have such a great insight into all this. That it's an area that not many people touch on. And it's really not only needed, but required for
definitely.
an artist. So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening and being in my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@bobbyowsinski.com. You can also learn all about the latest in music, audio, and production news, and find out about openings for my latest online classes at bobbyowsinski.com. This is Bobby Owsinski. I'll see you next time.